wealthy man lives isolated, following strict rules within his own home. Everything changes when an employee breaks the only rule without realizing it. Instead of reacting, he finds himself intrigued by that unexpected presence. And this mistake awakens something he has spent his life trying to avoid. If you like stories of love and romance, watch until the end. You won't regret it. Subscribe to this channel and leave your comment saying where you are listening to this beautiful story from. We continue. The silence of the penthouse on the 23rd floor was almost deafening. Marina Santos passed the microfiber cloth over the impeccable surface of the Carrara marble countertop for the third time that afternoon, knowing there wasn't a single mark there, but unable to stop. That was how it worked. Every inch of that apartment needed to be perfect, immaculate, as if no one had ever stepped foot there. And in a way, that was exactly it. Rafael Almeida didn't live in that place. He merely existed between those walls, in a calculated interval between appointments and meetings that defined the future of dozens of companies across Brazil. Marina knew his routine better than her own. She always arrived at 9 in the morning on Tuesdays and Thursdays, when she was certain he would have already left for the office any time. She cleaned, organized, changed the towels that were rarely used, and checked if the imported cleaning products he demanded were all in place. It was 3 hours of intense, silent, efficient work. Sometimes she looked through the enormous window overlooking Avenida Faria Lima and wondered how it was possible for someone to have all that and choose to live as if they were in a hotel. But it was none of her business. Marina had learned a long time ago that the lives of the people she worked for were forbidden territories. She was there to ensure everything functioned, not to question or judge. At 32 years old, after 8 years working as a day cleaner in luxury apartments across the south zone of São Paulo, she had developed an almost supernatural ability to become invisible. She entered, did her work, and left. No noise, no traces, no existence beyond what was necessary. On that Thursday in March, however, Marina was exhausted in a way that went beyond physical fatigue. Alice, her 7-year-old daughter, had spent the whole night coughing, that dry, persistent cough that left her gasping for air. Marina had stayed awake beside her, placing her hand on the small chest to feel the wheezing breath, praying quietly that she wouldn't have to rush to the emergency room in the middle of the night again. When daylight broke and Alice finally fell asleep, Marina had to leave her with her neighbor Dona Celia and run so as not to miss her day of work. She couldn't afford to miss it. Every cent counted. The rent for the one-bedroom apartment in Parisopolis, the electricity and water bills, food, and Alice's medicines, which were becoming increasingly expensive. Marina worked in 6 different houses during the week, and Rafael Almeida's was one of those that paid the best. 400 reais a day, almost double the average. She couldn't risk losing that. She finished the kitchen, passed through the wide living room where the Italian leather sofas looked untouched, and straightened the architecture and economics books that were perfectly aligned on the shelf. Everything there was planned, organized down to the millimeter. Even the air conditioning temperature was controlled by an automatic system that maintained exactly 22 degrees in every room. Only the master bedroom remained. Marina took a deep breath before entering. That was always the last room and also the strangest. The king-size bed was always made with impeccable white sheets, pillows aligned, and the blanket folded at the foot of the bed. It looked like a photo from a decoration magazine. Did he really sleep there? Or did he just lie down for a few hours before getting up to head into another day of decisions involving millions? Marina changed the sheets even though they looked unused, vacuumed the Persian rug beside the bed, and cleaned the enormous mirror that covered an entire wall. When she finished, she looked at the clock. 12:40. She still had 20 minutes before she needed to leave for her next job in Morumbi. But her feet throbbed, her back ached, and a slight dizziness began to take hold of her. Just a few minutes, she thought. I'll just sit here for a moment. Marina sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the mattress give slightly under her weight. It was absurdly comfortable. She could feel every muscle in her body screaming for rest. Just 5 minutes. She lay on her side, her head sinking into the soft pillow that smelled of lavender and something more subtle, more masculine. She closed her eyes. Just 5 minutes. Rafael Almeida ran his hand through his dark hair as he drove the Porsche Cayenne down Faria Lima. The morning meeting had been cancelled at the last minute. The Chinese investor who was coming from Hong Kong to discuss the expansion of one of his real estate developments had postponed until the following week. Rafael would have the rest of the day free, a concept as strange to him as the idea of an extended vacation. 42 years old, founder and CEO of Almeida Holdings, with assets totaling more than 2 billion reais in high-end commercial and residential developments throughout the country. He woke up at 5 in the morning every day, trained for an hour, arrived at the office at 7 and left at 10 at night. Weekends were dedicated to studying new markets, evaluating proposals, and planning future moves. There was no room for anything beyond that. And that was exactly how he wanted it. Rafael had learned early on that trusting people was a strategic error. At 20, he saw his father lose half of his wealth to a partner he considered a friend. At 25, he ended an engagement when he discovered the woman was more interested in his surname and bank account than in him. At 30, after building his empire from scratch, he established a rule he would never break again: maintain distance from everyone. Always. The penthouse in Jardins was his refuge, a space where he controlled every detail, every element. No one entered there while he was present, not friends, if he could even call the few social contacts he maintained friends, not family. His mother lived in Campinas and rarely visited him. Not women. The few adventures he allowed happened in hotels, calculated encounters that ended before they truly began. He parked in the building's basement, greeted the doorman with a nod, and went up in the private elevator. It was 2 in the afternoon on a Thursday, and he was home. Strange, almost uncomfortable. Perhaps he could review the last quarter's reports or study the proposal for the new development in Brasilia. He opened the door to the penthouse, felt the cold air from the air conditioning, and the absolute silence. He left his leather briefcase on the entryway sideboard and loosened his tie. He went straight to the bedroom to change clothes. Perhaps a hot shower would help him relax, something he rarely did during business hours. He opened the bedroom door and stopped. There was someone in his bed. His first impulse was pure anger. Who would dare invade his space, break the only inviolable rule of that place? But then his eyes adjusted to the soft light coming through the window, and he saw. It was the cleaning woman, the day worker. Rafael didn't even know her name properly. He only knew that she came on Tuesdays and Thursdays, that she did an impeccable job, and that she was discreet and punctual. He had never truly seen her. He always left before she arrived and returned after she was gone. It was exactly the arrangement he wanted. But there she was, lying in his bed, sleeping deeply. She wore a simple uniform, jeans and a white t-shirt. She had brown hair tied in a ponytail that had partially come undone, strands falling over her face. She looked exhausted even while sleeping, as if rest wasn't enough to erase the accumulated fatigue. Rafael should wake her immediately. He should fire her on the spot, making it clear that this was unacceptable. But something stopped him from moving. He stood there, frozen at the door, watching. For the first time in years, that room seemed inhabited, alive. The woman breathed softly, her chest rising and falling in a peaceful rhythm. There was something almost painful about that scene, as if someone had finally broken the glass dome he had built around his life. Rafael didn't know how long he stood there. It could have been seconds or minutes. Then he made a decision that surprised even himself. He left the room in silence, closed the door carefully, and went to the living room. He sat on the leather sofa he rarely used, took out his laptop and began to work. And he waited. Marina woke up with a start, her heart racing. The light in the room was different, dimmer. She grabbed her phone and saw the time, 4:30 in the afternoon. 4:30. Had she slept for almost 4 hours? She jumped up, the dizziness returning for a second. She needed to get out of there fast, smooth the bed, erase any trace that she had been there. But when she reached the bedroom door and opened it, she found something that made her freeze. Rafael Almeida was sitting on the living room sofa, laptop on his lap, looking directly at her. Marina felt the blood drain from her face. He was home. He had seen her sleeping in his bed. It was over. She would be fired on the spot, maybe even sued for invasion of privacy or something like that. How could she have been so stupid? I'm so sorry, Senor Almeida. I didn't mean to. I just sat down for a moment and ended up. I'm truly sorry. I'm leaving now." The words came out rushed, desperate. Raphael studied her in silence for a moment that seemed eternal. Then, to Marina's absolute astonishment, he said in a calm voice that seemed out of place for the situation, "You were exhausted." It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Marina didn't know how to respond. She only nodded, her eyes fixed on the floor. "How long have you worked here?" he asked. 8 months, senor." "And how many other places do you work during the week?" Marina hesitated. Why was he asking that? 5 other houses, senor. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and 2 jobs on Saturdays." Raphael nodded slowly, as if processing a complex equation. "How many hours of sleep did you get last night?" The question caught Marina completely off guard. "I must not many. My daughter was sick." Something passed across his face. A flash of something Marina couldn't identify. Concern, understanding. But it disappeared as quickly as it appeared. "You can keep coming on Tuesdays and Thursdays," he finally said. "But from now on, if you need to rest, use the guest room, not this bed." Marina blinked, confused. He wasn't firing her. "Senor, I truly am sorry. This will never happen again." "I'm not saying it will happen again," Raphael interrupted her, his voice still maintaining that controlled tone. "I'm saying that if it does, use the other room." He went back to looking at his laptop, as if the conversation had ended. Marina stood there, not knowing if she should say anything else, thank him, or run out. Finally, she murmured a low, "Thank you," and went to get her bag. When she reached the door, his voice reached her once more. "Marina." She turned, surprised that he knew her name. Raphael didn't take his eyes off the computer screen, but said, "Take better care of yourself. It's no use taking care of everyone if you collapse in the process." They were practical words, almost clinical, but there was something there, hidden between the lines, that made Marina's chest tighten. When she left the penthouse and entered the elevator, she had to lean against the mirrored wall. What had just happened? Why hadn't he fired her? And why did those last words of his echo in her mind as if they were much more than simple advice? As the elevator descended, Marina had no way of knowing that up there Raphael Almeida was still sitting on the sofa, staring fixedly at the laptop screen without seeing anything, thinking about how his penthouse seemed strangely empty now that she was gone, and how for the first time in over a decade he found himself genuinely worried about another person. On the following Tuesday, Marina arrived at the penthouse 15 minutes early. She spent the first 5 standing in the hallway of the 23rd floor, breathing deeply, trying to calm her nerves. She didn't know what to expect. Maybe Raphael had changed his mind and decided to fire her anyway. Maybe he had left a note with the doorman. Maybe he simply never wanted to see her again. But when she opened the door with the key she had, she found everything exactly as it had always been. Silence, emptiness, the usual impeccable organization. And, on the kitchen counter, a white envelope with her name handwritten in firm, elegant calligraphy. Marina picked up the envelope with trembling hands. Inside she found the payment for the previous week, the usual 400 reais, and an extra 300 reais, no explanatory note, just the money. She looked at the bills for a long moment. Those 300 reais meant medicine for Alice, maybe even a consultation with the pulmonologist the pediatrician had been recommending for months. But why had he done that? Pity, guilt for her having worked exhausted until she collapsed on his bed, or something more. Marina put the money in her bag and started working, but her mind couldn't shut off. Every object she touched seemed charged with a different energy. The coffee mug he had left in the sink, evidence that he actually used that space contrary to how it seemed. The slightly damp towel in the bathroom, the subtle scent of masculine perfume that lingered in the air. It was while she was organizing the books on the living room shelf that she noticed something new. Among the volumes on economics and architecture, there was a book that wasn't there before. A novel. Marina picked it up with curiosity. 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. There was a bookmark halfway through. Did Raphael Almeida read fiction? That seemed not to match the image she had of him. She put the book back in its place and continued working, but the discovery kept echoing in her mind. Maybe he wasn't just the cold and calculating businessman he appeared to be. Maybe there were layers there that she couldn't see. A week passed, then another. The routine returned to its normal flow, but with small, almost imperceptible changes. Marina began to notice that some items were moved between her visits. A cup left on the coffee table, a different book open on the sofa. Once she found a classical music playlist playing softly through the living room sound system. Had he forgotten to turn it off? Or had he left it on purpose? And then, on a Thursday in April, Marina arrived and found Raphael still there. It was 9:15 in the morning. He should have left over 2 hours ago, but he was sitting at the kitchen table, white dress shirt with sleeves rolled up to his elbows, hair slightly disheveled, drinking coffee while reading something on a tablet. Marina stopped at the entrance, not knowing what to do. Should she come back later, wait outside? But he looked up and saw her, and something in his gaze stopped her from moving. "Good morning, Marina." His voice was different in the morning, deeper, less formal. "Good morning, Senor Almeida. I can come back later if you prefer." "No need." He took a sip of coffee, his eyes still fixed on her. "You can work normally, I have some calls to make, but I won't be leaving early today." Marina nodded, uncertain. It was the first time she would work with him present, the first time she would consciously share that space. She felt her heart accelerate as she grabbed the cleaning products. She started with the living room, trying to be even quieter than usual. But she was hyper-aware of her every movement, knowing he was there, just a few meters away. She could hear him speaking on the phone in English, his voice firm and authoritative, discussing numbers and deadlines. Later in Portuguese with a softer tone, talking to someone about a project in Porto Alegre. When she finished the living room and went to the bedrooms, she breathed a sigh of relief at putting some distance between them. But the tension remained, vibrating under her skin like a low-intensity electric current. She was changing the sheets in the guest room when she heard footsteps. She turned and found Raphael standing in the doorway, watching her. Marina swallowed hard. "Sorry to disturb you," he said, but he didn't seem the least bit sorry. "I just wanted to know, is your daughter better?" The question caught Marina completely off guard. How did he know about Alice? Then she remembered. She herself had mentioned it the week of the incident, but the fact that he remembered, that he asked. "She is, thank you. The medicine helped a lot." Raphael nodded, but he didn't leave. He stood there, leaning against the doorframe, and Marina felt the air in the room grow denser. He was tall. He must have been about 6'1", with broad shoulders under his dress shirt. He had dark brown eyes that seemed to see through people, and at that moment, those eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that made Marina's stomach flip. "How old is she?" he asked. 7. She'll be 8 in June. And the father. Marina felt her muscles stiffen. He's not part of her life, he never was. She didn't hide the hardness in her voice. She didn't want to talk about it, about how she had gotten pregnant at 24 by a man who promised the world but vanished when he found out about the pregnancy. About how she had raised Alice alone since day one, without help, without child support, without anything but her own strength. Raphael seemed to realize he had touched on a delicate subject. "Sorry, I didn't mean to be invasive." "You weren't," Marina lied, returning to smoothing the sheets with more force than necessary. There was a moment of heavy silence. Then Raphael said, almost as if he were thinking out loud, "It must be hard, doing everything alone. I manage." The answer came out more defensive than Marina intended. "I'm not saying you don't." His voice grew softer. "I'm just saying it's hard and that you shouldn't have to do it alone." Marina looked at him, surprised. There was something in Raphael's gaze, an understanding that seemed to come from somewhere deep. As if he understood, truly, the weight of carrying everything on one's shoulders without being able to share it with anyone. "I choose to manage," Marina finally said, but her voice was less defensive now. "Because she needs me, and I will never let her down." "I know." Raphael held her gaze for another second, then stepped away from the door. "I'll be in the office if you need anything." When he left, Marina had to sit on the edge of the bed for a moment, her legs weak. What was happening? Why was he asking personal questions? Why did he seem genuinely interested? And why, for God's sake, was her heart beating so fast? In the following weeks, Raphael's presence during her visits became more frequent. Not every day, but at least once or twice a week he was there when she arrived, or he appeared in the middle of her shift. He never gave explanations. He just said, "Good morning," and went about his business while she worked. But Marina began to notice patterns. He left the office door open when she was cleaning the living room. He took coffee breaks that coincided with the times she was in the kitchen. Once she found him on the balcony, looking at the city, and he called her to see the view. "You've worked here for almost a year and you've never stopped to truly look at this, have you?" He was right. Marina had always been too busy to afford the luxury of appreciating the landscape. And there were the small gestures that defied explanation. The Brazilian music playlist he left playing softly. "If it bothers you, you can change it," he said. But Marina never changed it because she liked the songs. The package of cookies that appeared in the pantry with a post-it saying, "For your snack," in a calligraphy she now recognized. The day she arrived with a cold, trying to hide it, and found a hot tea waiting on the kitchen counter. Marina knew she should maintain distance. She knew that this, whatever it was dangerous. They came from completely different worlds. She was the cleaner. He was the boss. She lived in Paraisópolis. He lived in a 10 million real penthouse. She struggled to pay the bills every month. He moved fortunes with a phone call. But it was impossible to ignore the change that was happening. In the space between them, in the air they breathed when they were in the same room, in the looks that lasted a second longer than they should. It was on a day in May, while Marina was cleaning the living room shelf and Raphael was working on his laptop on the sofa, that she accidentally knocked over a picture frame. It was hidden behind some books, and Marina didn't even know it existed. The photo inside showed a younger Raphael, maybe in his early 20s, beside an older man who had the same face shape, the same intense gaze. "Your father?" Marina asked without thinking, picking up the frame to put it back in its place. Raphael looked up and she saw something darken in his face. He was. He died 15 years ago. "I'm sorry." Marina held the photo carefully, as if it were something precious and fragile. "He taught me everything about business," Raphael said, his voice losing some of its usual firmness. "But he also taught me that trusting the wrong people can destroy everything you've built. He trusted a partner who stole half the company. He never fully recovered from that. He died of a heart attack 2 years later." Marina looked at the photo, at the man who clearly meant so much to Raphael. And suddenly she understood. The need for control, the isolation, the walls he had built around his own life. It wasn't coldness, it was protection. "It must have been very hard for you," she said softly, putting the photo back on the shelf. It was. Raphael closed his laptop, his attention now entirely on her. "I was 27. I took over the businesses that remained, rebuilt everything from scratch, and I swore I would never let anyone have enough power over me to destroy me like that again." "Is that why you live like this?" The words came out before Marina could stop them. "Alone?" Raphael studied her for a long moment. Then, to her surprise, he smiled. It was a small smile, almost sad but genuine. The first real smile Marina had seen on him. "Yes, or at least that's why it was. Now," he paused as if reconsidering what he was going to say. "Now I'm not sure if it still makes sense." Marina's heart raced. There was something in the way he looked at her, a vulnerability she had never seen before, and she realized with terrifying clarity that it wasn't just her feeling it. Whatever was growing between them was mutual. "I should go," Marina said, although she didn't want to. "I'm finished here." "Marina!" His voice stopped her when she was almost at the door. She turned. Raphael was standing now, hands in his pockets, and seemed to be fighting something internally. Do you want to have a coffee? For real, I mean. Sit and talk?" It was a simple question, but they both knew it wasn't. It was an invitation to cross a line that once crossed would change everything. Marina should say no. She should maintain professional distance, protect her job, protect her heart. But when she opened her mouth, what came out was, "Yes, I would like that." And as she sat at the kitchen table for the first time, while Raphael prepared coffee in a silence heavy with possibilities, Marina knew there was no going back. Something had already changed, irrevocably, and she didn't have the slightest idea how to deal with it. The coffee became a habit. Every Tuesday and Thursday after Marina finished work, they sat at the kitchen table for 20, sometimes 30 minutes. They talked about simple things at first, the weather, news, a book he was reading, a television show she watched with Alice. But gradually the conversations became deeper, more personal. Raphael told her about his mother, who had lived with him for years after his father's death, but eventually moved back to Campinas because she couldn't stand the loneliness of São Paulo. "She said I turned this penthouse into a mausoleum," Raphael said with a humorless laugh. And she was right. Marina spoke about Alice, about how the pregnancy had been unexpected but never unwanted, about the difficult first years, sleeping 3 hours a night while working during the day and studying at night to finish high school, about how she had to give up the dream of going to college when she realized she couldn't work, study, and take care of a small child at the same time. "You can still go to college," Raphael said. "It's not too late." Marina smiled, but it was a tired smile. "With what time? With what money? No, that stayed in the past. Now my focus is ensuring Alice has the opportunities I didn't have." Something in Raphael's gaze intensified when she said that, as if he admired, and was simultaneously bothered by her resignation, but he didn't press the subject. It was on a Tuesday in June that everything changed. Marina arrived at the penthouse visibly shaken. Her eyes were red, her hands trembling slightly when she picked up the cleaning products. She tried to concentrate on work, but Raphael noticed immediately. He was in the office, on a video conference with investors from Rio, but when he saw her pass through the hallway, he apologized and turned off the camera. "Marina." He appeared at the living room door. "What happened?" "Nothing, Senor Almeida, I'm fine." But her voice broke at the end of the sentence. Raphael crossed the room in 3 long strides. "You are not. What happened?" Marina tried to step back, but he gently held her arm, forcing her to look at him, and that was what broke her. The tears she had been holding back all morning finally overflowed. "It's Alice," she managed to say between sobs. "She had a very strong asthma attack last night. I had to take her to the emergency room. We were there until 5 in the morning. They said she needs more serious treatment, a specialist. Exams that the SUS will take months to schedule, and I don't have money to pay for private care." Raphael felt something tighten in his chest. Seeing her like that, so strong and yet so broken, awakened in him a protective instinct he didn't know he possessed. "How much does it cost?" he asked, practical. Marina shook her head. "No, I can't accept. I didn't ask if you can accept. I asked how much it costs." "Senor Almeida." "Raphael." He gently held her face, wiping a tear with his thumb. "Call me Raphael and tell me how much the treatment costs." Marina stared at him, struggling between pride and despair. Despair won. "The consultation with the pulmonologist is 1,200, the exams about 2,000. And then there's the treatment itself, which can reach 5,000 a month, depending on the medications." They were numbers that for Raphael represented less than he spent on a business dinner. But for Marina, it was an insurmountable abyss. He grabbed his phone. "What are you doing?" Marina asked, startled. "Calling my doctor. He will recommend the best pediatric pulmonologist in São Paulo. I'm scheduling the appointment for tomorrow." "Raphael, no, I can't accept this. It's too much money. I'll never be able to pay it back." "I'm not asking you to pay it back." He lowered the phone for a moment, his eyes fixed on hers with an intensity that made her tremble. "I'm doing this because I want to, because your daughter deserves to have health, and because you deserve not to have to carry this weight alone." "But why?" Marina's voice came out in a whisper. "Why do you care?" Raphael was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower, more vulnerable than Marina had ever heard. "Because you reminded me of what it's like to feel something real. Because for the first time in 15 years, I wake up and don't see this penthouse as a prison. Because when you are here, everything seems possible." The air between them became electrically charged. Marina could feel her heart beating so hard, she was sure he could hear it. They were very close, too close. She could see the small lines around his eyes, feel the heat emanating from his body. "This is madness," Marina whispered, but she didn't pull away. "I know." Raphael was still holding her face, his thumb tracing a soft line along her cheek. "But I can't stop." Marina closed her eyes. She wanted to give in. She wanted so desperately to let this happen, whatever it was. But the fear was greater. The fear of getting hurt, of losing her job, of complicating everything even more. "I need to think," she finally said, stepping back, "about the help, about everything." Raphael let his hand fall, respecting her space, but his eyes said everything he wasn't saying out loud. "All right, think as much as you need, but let me at least schedule the appointment for Alice, as a personal favor." Marina nodded, because denying medical help for her daughter out of pride would be pure selfishness. "Okay, but I'm going to pay you back. I don't know how or when, but I will." "If that makes you feel better, we can settle that later." Raphael picked up the phone again. "What is her full name and date of birth?" As Marina provided the information, she felt a complex mixture of relief, gratitude, and terror. She was accepting help. She was letting Raphael into a part of her life she had always kept closed to everyone. She was, in a way, handing him a piece of her control. And the scariest part was that she didn't feel bad about it. The appointment was scheduled for the next day at a private clinic in Villa Olympia. Marina had to reschedule one of her jobs for the week, but she didn't mind. She arrived with Alice half an hour early, nervous, holding her daughter's hand tightly. Alice was a small girl for her age, with curly brown hair inherited from Marina and large, curious eyes. She was excited about the appointment, asking 1,000 questions about the doctor, the clinic, everything. Marina answered patiently, trying to hide her own anxiety. When they entered Dr. Henrique Salles' office, Marina was surprised. She expected someone older, grumpier. But the pulmonologist was young, about 40, with a gentle smile that immediately reassured Alice. "So you are Alice. Raphael told me a lot about you." Marina blinked. Had Raphael spoken to the doctor personally about Alice? The consultation lasted nearly 2 hours. Dr. Salles examined Alice thoroughly, asked detailed questions about her medical history, and ordered specific tests. But what impressed Marina most was the patience with which he talked to Alice, explaining everything in language she could understand. In the end, he turned to Marina. "Her asthma is moderate to severe, but completely controllable with proper treatment. I'm going to prescribe a combination of medications and monthly follow-ups. In 6 months, if all goes well, she will be much better." "How much will it cost?" Marina asked, her voice tense. Dr. Salles hesitated. Raphael already settled everything. The full treatment, including consultations and medications, is covered for the next 6 months. Marina felt the tears return. He didn't have to do that. He insisted. The doctor smiled. "And between us, I rarely see Raphael care so much about someone. You and your daughter must be very special." When they left the clinic, Alice was radiant, holding the prescription for the new medicines like a trophy. "The doctor said I'll be able to run and play without getting tired, Mom, without coughing." Marina hugged her daughter tightly, her heart divided between overwhelming gratitude and a growing fear of what that meant. Raphael wasn't just helping. He was becoming part of their lives. And the closer he got, the harder it would be when everything inevitably fell apart. Because it always fell apart, didn't it? People like her didn't stay with people like him. This was real life, not a fairy tale. But when she got home that night, she found a message from him. Simple, direct. "How was the appointment?" Marina looked at the phone for a long time before responding. "It was perfect. Thank you doesn't seem like enough." The reply came almost immediately. "No need to thank me, just tell me she's going to be okay." "She will." The doctor guaranteed it. There was a pause, then, "I'm glad. Sleep well, Marina." "Good night, Raphael." Marina held the phone against her chest, her eyes closed. She was falling fast and deep for a man who was everything she should never want. A man who lived in a world completely different from hers. A man who, by some miracle or madness, seemed to be falling for her too. And the scariest part of all, she didn't want to stop anymore. The following Thursday, when Marina arrived at the penthouse, she found Raphael in the kitchen with a different expression. Nervous, anxious. She couldn't tell. "Good morning," she said cautiously. "Good morning." He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture Marina had learned to recognize as a sign of uncertainty. "Before you start working, I need to ask you something." Marina's heart accelerated. "What is it?" "Alice, does she like swimming pools?" The question caught Marina completely off guard. "She does, but she's never had many opportunities to swim. Why?" Raphael pointed to the balcony door. "Because this building has a pool on the rooftop, indoor and heated. And Dr. Sales said swimming is excellent for asthma. It helps strengthen the lungs. Marina blinked. You talked to the doctor about exercises for Alice? I did. He faced her directly. And I wanted to know if you would let her come here on weekends to swim. I would be here so there wouldn't be a problem with the condo rules about minors without supervision. Marina was paralyzed. He was inviting Alice to come to the penthouse, to enter his private space, the sanctuary he protected so fiercely. He was voluntarily breaking his own rules. Raphael, are you sure? A small child is a lot of work, makes noise, makes a mess. I know. A small smile appeared on his lips. And it's okay, I want to get to know her truly, if you'll let me. Farina felt something melt inside her chest. How was it possible that this man, so closed off, so protected, was opening up like this? She would love it, Marina said, her voice choked with emotion. But I need to warn you, she talks non-stop, she asks 1,000 questions, and she is very affectionate. She hugs everyone. Sounds great. And from his look, Marina knew he meant it. So, Sunday around 2 in the afternoon? Sunday at 2. Raphael nodded. And Marina, you're coming too, right? I'm not going to kidnap your daughter. Marina laughed, and it was a genuine, light laugh. I'm coming. I promise to keep an eye on you two. When she started working that day, Marina realized that something fundamental had changed. They were no longer playing at cautious approach. They were no longer testing limits. They had decided, even without speaking explicitly, that they were going to try, that they were going to see how far this could go. And for the first time in a long, long time, Marina allowed herself to feel hope. The dangerous, scary, and absolutely beautiful hope that maybe, just maybe, she deserved to be happy too. Sunday arrived, wrapped in an anxiety Marina hadn't felt in years. She changed her clothes 3 times before deciding on a light blue blouse and jeans. Alice was extremely excited, wearing the new swimsuit Marina had bought especially for the occasion, jumping around the house while asking for the 1,000th time if it was time to go yet. Mom, is he going to like me? Alice asked on the subway, suddenly serious. Marina squeezed her daughter's small hand. He's going to love you. Impossible not to love you. Is he your boyfriend? The question caught Marina by surprise. No, honey, he's a friend. Alice studied her with those sharp eyes that seemed to see much more than they should. But you act all different when you talk about him. You get that little smile. Marina felt her face heat up. What little smile? That one. Alice imitated a dreamy expression that made Marina laugh and feel mortified at the same time. He is special, yes, Marina admitted, but it's complicated. Why do adults complicate everything? Alice sighed dramatically. If you like him and he likes you, that's it. You become boyfriends and everyone is happy. If only it were that simple, Marina thought. But she said nothing, just kissed the top of her daughter's head. When they arrived at the penthouse, Raphael opened the door even before Marina rang the bell. He was more casual than she had ever seen him. A simple white t-shirt and swim trunks. His hair was slightly damp, as if he had just stepped out of the shower, and he seemed genuinely nervous. "Hi," he said, and Marina realized it was the first time she saw him not knowing exactly what to do or say. "Hi," Marina smiled, finding the situation funny. "Raphael, this is Alice. Alice, this is Raphael." Alice didn't have her mother's hesitation. She walked in, looked at Raphael with that unfiltered curiosity of children, and declared, "You are very tall, and your house looks like the ones on the soap operas." Raphael let out a genuine laugh, and Marina felt something melt inside her, seeing how his face transformed when he smiled for real. "Thank you, I think. Want to see the pool?" "I do!" Alice practically screamed. The rooftop pool was heated and indoor, with a panoramic view of São Paulo that took one's breath away. Alice dove in immediately, while Marina stayed sitting on a lounge chair, watching. Raphael swam with Alice, teaching her movements that would improve her breathing, explaining patiently when she swallowed water or lost her rhythm. It was surreal to see that man who lived closed in a cocoon of control, playing in the pool with a 7-year-old child. But he seemed completely comfortable, laughing at the stories Alice told non-stop, answering the endless questions with genuine seriousness. "Do you have kids?" Alice asked at one point. "I don't." "Why?" "Alice?" Marina intervened, embarrassed. "It's okay," Raphael said. He looked at Alice with sincerity. "Because I always thought I didn't know how to be a father. I didn't have a good example for a long time. My dad didn't want to be a dad either, Alice said with startling naturalness. But my mom is a dad and a mom at the same time. She's the best. Raphael looked at Marina, and there was so much in that look that she had to look away. Your mother is truly special. After the pool, they had a snack on the balcony. Raphael had bought cake, juice, fruit, clearly having no idea what children like to eat, but the effort was touching. Alice ate and talked non-stop, telling him about school, her friends, her favorite cartoon. And Raphael listened to everything with genuine attention, asking questions, laughing at the right moments. "Can I see the other rooms?" Alice asked when she finished eating. Marina was going to say no, but Raphael cut her off. "You can, I'll show you." As they disappeared down the hallway, Marina was left alone on the balcony, trying to process everything. This was happening too fast. They were building something that seemed increasingly impossible to dismantle, and the most terrifying part was that she didn't want to stop. When they returned, Alice was radiant. "Mom, he has a room just for games with video games and everything, and he said I can come play whenever I want." "He did?" Marina looked at Raphael, surprised. He shrugged, but there was color in his cheeks. "If you let her, of course. I thought, well, Alice could come here sometimes. When you're working in other places. I work from home half the week now. It wouldn't be a problem." Marina was speechless. He was offering to take care of Alice, to include her in his routine, to become in some way part of her life. "That's too much to ask," Marina said, but her voice was weak. "I'm not asking, I'm offering." Raphael stared at her with that intensity that completely disarmed her. "And I want to do this, Marina, truly." In that moment, with Alice distracted looking at the city through the enormous window, Marina felt the defenses she had been maintaining begin to crumble completely. How could she fight against someone who offered everything without asking for anything in return? How could she maintain distance from someone who saw her, truly saw her, the way Raphael saw her? The following weeks established a new routine. Alice began going to the penthouse twice a week, while Marina worked in other places. At first, Marina was tense, calling every 2 hours to check if everything was okay. But gradually, she relaxed as she realized that Raphael treated Alice with a care that bordered on devotion. He helped with homework, doing math problems with infinite patience. He played video games and let Alice win half the time. He made healthy snacks following the instructions Marina left, and most importantly, he listened. He truly listened when Alice talked about her fears, her hopes, her childhood dreams. "She told me she wants to be a veterinarian," Raphael said to Marina one Thursday, while they had coffee after Alice had already left with the neighbor. "She said she likes taking care of animals because they don't talk, but you can feel when they need help." Marina smiled. "She said the same thing to me last month. I'm surprised you remembered." "I remember everything she says." Raphael held his coffee cup, his eyes distant. "It's funny. I spent years thinking children were complicated, noisy, unpredictable. And Alice is all of that, but she's also pure, you know? She doesn't have a hidden agenda. She doesn't want anything from me but attention. It's refreshing." "You're good with her," Marina said softly. "Better than you imagine." Raphael met her gaze. "I learned from the best. You're an incredible mother, Marina. Alice is lucky to have you." "We are both lucky to have you now," Marina replied before she could stop herself. The air between them changed. It grew denser, charged. Raphael placed his cup on the table slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. "Marina." His voice was deeper, lower. "I need to tell you something." Her heart raced. "What?" I don't know how to pretend this is just friendship anymore, that you're just the woman who works here. Every time you leave, this place feels empty in a way it never did before. And when you arrive, it's as if everything finally makes sense." Marina felt her breath catch. "Raphael, let me finish." He stood up, began walking through the kitchen as if he couldn't stay still. "I know we are from different worlds. I know I am your employer, and that complicates everything. I know you have 1,000 reasons not to want this. But I can't deny what I feel anymore. I'm in love with you, Marina, completely." The words hung in the air. Marina knew she should say something, but her throat was tight, her heart beating so hard it hurt. "You don't have to answer now," Raphael continued, finally stopping his pacing and facing her. "I just needed you to know that this is real for me, You and Alice, you changed everything, and I don't want to go back to how things were before." Marina stood up slowly, her legs shaky. She crossed the distance between them, saw his eyes widen slightly as she stopped a few centimeters away. "You think it's just you feeling this?" Her voice came out in a whisper. "I stay awake at night thinking about you. I invent excuses to spend more time here. I check my phone 1,000 times a day hoping for a message from you. I'm terrified, Raphael. Terrified of what this means, of what could go wrong, but I'm even more terrified of not trying." Raphael raised his hand, hesitant, and touched her face with a delicacy that contrasted with the intensity in his eyes. "So let's not be afraid together." Marina didn't answer with words. She rose on her tiptoes and pressed her lips against his. The kiss began softly, almost reverent, but it quickly intensified. Months of tension and restraint finally released. Raphael pulled Marina close, his hands on her waist, and she interlaced her fingers in his hair, feeling her whole body ignite. When they finally separated, both were out of breath. Raphael rested his forehead against hers, his eyes closed. "That was—" he began. "I know," Marina finished. They stayed like that for a long moment, just feeling each other's presence, the weight of what had just happened settling between them. There was no going back, no more pretending. They had crossed the line, and now they would have to deal with the consequences. But as Raphael held Marina in his arms, neither of them regretted it. In the following weeks, the relationship between them flourished in a way that surprised even Marina. Raphael became different, lighter, more open. He laughed more, relaxed more. The business meetings that used to extend late into the night now ended earlier because he wanted to be home when Alice arrived. And this did not go unnoticed at his work. "Raphael, you're different," commented his partner Marcelo during a meeting at the Almeida Holdings office. "More human, perhaps?" Raphael smiled, something that surprised Marcelo. The Raphael he knew wasn't one for smiling in meetings. "Perhaps I'm finally learning that there's more to life than work and money." "Is there a woman involved in this?" Marcelo asked, curious. Raphael hesitated for only a second. "There is, and a child too." Marcelo's eyes widened. "You? With a child? The man who swore never to have a family." "Things change, Marcelo, people change." And it was true. Raphael was changing, and although part of him was still afraid of what that meant, another part, the part that woke up happy because he would see Marina and Alice that day, knew it was the best change he had ever made. Marina was also changing. She began to accept help more easily. She allowed Raphael to pay for things she could never have paid for alone, not as charity, but as someone who genuinely cared. The private follow-up consultation for Alice, quality school supplies she could never have bought. Small things that made an enormous difference, and slowly, very slowly, she began to believe that maybe she deserved it, that maybe it wasn't a mistake to accept being loved. The storm arrived on a July afternoon when Marina least expected it. She was at the penthouse with Alice, preparing dinner while Raphael worked in the office, when the doorbell rang. Marina frowned. Raphael never received unannounced visits. She went to the door and looked through the viewer. An elegant woman in her early 60s was outside, wearing a beige suit and carrying a designer bag. She had the same face shape as Raphael, the same penetrating eyes. Marina opened the door, her heart accelerating. "Can I help you?" The woman studied her from head to toe, and Marina suddenly felt conscious of her simple clothes and the sauce-stained apron she was wearing. "You must be Marina. I am Helena Almeida, Raphael's mother. I would like to speak with him." "Of course, come in, I'll call him." Marina went to the office and knocked on the door. Raphael looked up from his laptop, smiled upon seeing her, but the smile disappeared when he saw her expression. "What is it?" "Your mother is here." Raphael turned pale. "My mother? She never comes without warning." When Raphael left the office and saw Helena in the living room, Marina noticed the immediate tension in his shoulders. "Mother, what a surprise." "I needed to see with my own eyes," Helena said, her voice icy. "The gossip that is running about you, that you are involved with a domestic servant, that there is a child frequenting your home. I thought it impossible, but here I am, seeing that it is true." Marina felt as if she had been slapped. The disdainful tone with which Helena said domestic servant made it clear exactly what she thought of the situation. "Don't speak like that," Raphael said, his voice low and dangerous. "Marina is not a servant and Alice is not a child. They are important to me." "Important?" Helena let out a humorless laugh. "Raphael, have you completely lost your mind? Do you know what people are saying? That you are having a midlife crisis? That you've lost focus on business? That you are involving yourself with someone completely unsuitable for you?" Marina felt tears sting her eyes, but she held them back. She wasn't going to give Helena the pleasure of seeing her cry. But before she could say anything, Alice appeared from the kitchen. "Mom, the pasta is overflowing." She stopped upon seeing the scene. "Hi, who are you?" Helena looked at Alice as if she were an unwanted apparition. "So you are the child?" "Alice, go back to the kitchen," Marina said, trying to keep her voice firm. But Raphael stepped forward, placing himself between Helena and Alice. "Mother, you need to leave now." "Raphael, be sensible. You cannot throw away everything you've built because of a whim." "A whim?" Raphael's voice rose for the first time. "You think what I feel for Marina and Alice is a whim. They are the best thing that has happened to me in years. For the first time, I wake up happy. For the first time, this damn penthouse feels like a home, not a prison." "Oh, you are deluding yourself," Helena said, but there was something broken in her voice now. "People like us do not mix with people like her. You know that." "People like us?" Raphael laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. "Lonely people, embittered people, who turn money into walls to protect themselves from anything real. I don't want to be people like us anymore, Mother. I want to be someone who cares, who feels, who truly lives." Helena looked at her son for a long moment, and Marina saw something like pain cross her face. Then she grabbed her bag and straightened her shoulders. "You will regret this, Raphael, and when you do not come looking for me." She left, slamming the door hard. The silence that remained was deafening. Raphael turned to Marina, his face tense. "I'm sorry, she had no right—" "She's right," Marina interrupted him, her voice trembling. "In part, people will talk, they will judge. You will lose relationships, maybe even business, all because you got involved with someone who doesn't belong to your world." "Marina—" "Alice, go get your things," Marina said firmly. "We're going home." "But Mom, dinner." "Now, Alice." The girl looked between her mother and Raphael, confused and scared, but obeyed. When they were alone, Raphael held Marina's arms. "Don't do this. Don't let her words destroy what we have." "And what do we have, Raphael?" Marina asked, tears finally overflowing. "A secret relationship that shames your family? That makes people whisper behind your back? Are you willing to lose all of that? Your reputation, your business, your family?" "Yes." The answer was immediate, without hesitation. "For you and Alice, yes." Marina shook her head. "You say that now, but what about 6 months from now, a year, when the shine of the novelty fades and you realize everything you gave up?" "Marina, look at me." Raphael held her face, forcing her to meet his gaze. "I am not giving up anything. I am gaining everything. For the first time in my life, I have something that truly matters. Someone who sees me as I am, not as my bank account or my surname. Do you think I'm going to throw that away because my mother or my country club friends don't approve? It's easy to say that now." "It's not easy," Raphael interrupted her. "None of this is easy, but it's real, Marina. It's the realest thing I've ever had, and I will fight for it, even if you are too afraid to fight too." The words hit Marina like a punch. She was afraid of believing that this could work out, afraid of giving herself completely and then losing everything, afraid of not being enough for him, the same way she had never been enough for Alice's father. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered. "I don't know if I'm strong enough." "You are the strongest person I know," Raphael said with intensity. "You raised a daughter alone, you work 6 days a week, you never gave up even when everything was against you. If there is anyone strong enough to face whatever comes, it's you." Alice returned at that moment, backpack on her back, eyes red as if she had cried in the room. She looked at Raphael with an expression that broke Marina's heart. "Are we not coming here anymore?" she asked, her voice small. Raphael knelt in front of her, becoming level with the girl's eyes. "Not if it's up to me. You are always welcome here, Alice. Always." "But that lady said bad things. She said we weren't suitable." Alice's voice broke on the last word. "That lady was wrong," Raphael said firmly. "You are more than suitable. You are perfect exactly as you are, and anyone who doesn't see that is because they are blind." Alice looked at her mother, then at Raphael. "Do you promise you won't go away like my dad?" Marina felt her heart shatter, and she saw in Raphael's face the same pain. "I promise," Raphael said, and there was so much conviction in his voice that even Marina had to believe it. "I'm not going anywhere, Alice. You are stuck with me now." Alice threw herself into his arms, crying. Raphael hugged her tight, looking at Marina over the girl's head. And in that look, Marina saw everything he wasn't saying out loud: the promise, the determination, the love. And she realized he was right. She was afraid. But if she didn't try, if she let fear win, she would be teaching Alice that love isn't worth the fight. And what kind of message was that to pass to her daughter? Marina approached, wrapping them both in a hug. And there, pressed together, they decided they weren't going to let the outside world dictate what they could or couldn't feel. In the following weeks, Raphael made decisions that made it clear to everyone where his loyalty lay. He began appearing at social events with Marina by his side, not as a hidden shame, but as his partner. The first time they went to a business dinner together, the looks and whispers were almost unbearable. "That's his cleaner," Marina heard a woman whisper to another in the bathroom. "I heard she has a daughter by another man. He must be having a crisis." Marina took a deep breath, straightened the simple dress she had bought on sale, and left the bathroom with her head held high. When she returned to the table, Raphael immediately took her hand, interlacing their fingers, and didn't let go for the rest of the night. Some people were kind. Marcelo, Raphael's partner, talked to Marina with genuine interest about her life, her hopes for Alice. Dr. Sales, the pulmonologist, stopped to ask how the girl's treatment was going. But others were openly hostile or disdainful. "You don't have to do this," Marina said to Raphael in the car returning home. "You don't have to drag me to these events. I'm not dragging you, I'm including you, because you are part of my life, and anyone who has a problem with that can be damned." Marina smiled despite everything. "You're getting rebellious in your old age." "Old age?" Raphael feigned offense. "I'm 42. 42 very well-lived years," Marina teased, and he laughed, that loose laugh that only appeared when they were alone. But not everything was just looks and mean comments. There were real consequences. 2 major investors withdrew from projects with Almeida Holdings, citing differences in personal values. A longtime family client cancelled a 20 million real contract, saying he could no longer trust Raphael's judgment. "You're losing money because of me," Marina said one night after Raphael had told her about the cancelled contract. Raphael pulled her to the sofa, making her sit on his lap. "I'm losing prejudiced clients who were never worth my time, and gaining something much more valuable." "What?" "A reason to wake up happy. A family. A future that isn't just making more money and dying alone." Marina rested her head on his shoulder. "Sometimes it still feels like a dream to me, as if I'm going to wake up and find out none of this is real." "It's very real." Raphael kissed the top of her head. "And do you know how I know? Because dreams don't have Alice waking up at 6 in the morning wanting pancakes. Dreams don't have you leaving your clothes scattered around the room. Dreams don't have utility bills and arguments about what movie to watch on Friday night." Marina laughed. "When you put it that way, it sounds so normal." "It is normal. It's beautiful and messy and normal, and I wouldn't trade it for anything." It was that night that Marina finally said the words she had been holding back. "I love you, Raphael. I love you so much, it's scary." Raphael stayed very quiet for a moment. Then he turned Marina on his lap so she was facing him. "I've been waiting for you to say that for weeks. And now that you've said it, I'm never going to let you forget it. I love you too, Marina. You and Alice. You are my family now." And when they kissed, it was different from all previous kisses. It was a promise, a commitment, the recognition that there was no going back, and that both were in agreement with that. It wouldn't be easy. They would still have to face judgments, lose relationships, and navigate the differences in their realities. But they would do it together. And finally, that seemed to be enough. 6 months later, on a sunny January morning, Marina woke up in the king-size bed of the penthouse, that same bed where everything had begun, and for a moment just lay there, listening to the sounds of the house. Raphael in the kitchen making coffee, Alice humming in the room that was now officially hers, decorated with animal posters and a new bed she had chosen herself. They had moved into the penthouse 3 months ago. It hadn't been an easy decision. Marina had resisted, saying it was too fast, that they needed to be sure. But Raphael had argued that it made no sense for her to pay rent when they had 3 empty rooms there. And when Alice had pleaded, saying she wanted to live with Raphael for real, Marina could no longer say no. The physical move had been the easy part. Marina didn't have many belongings. The emotional move was more complex. There were still moments when she felt like an intruder, as if she didn't deserve to be there. Moments when she woke up in the middle of the night in a panic, thinking everything would collapse. But those moments were becoming increasingly rare, because every day Raphael proved he was there to stay, that his love wasn't fleeting or based on novelty. It was solid, constant, built on small gestures and conscious decisions. Marina got up, put on the robe Raphael had bought for her, soft silk she would never have bought for herself, and went to the kitchen. Raphael had his back to her, in his pajamas, dancing slightly to the sound of music playing on his phone while he stirred something in the skillet. "Good morning," Marina said, wrapping her arms around his waist from behind. Raphael turned, smiling, and kissed her. "Good morning, beautiful. Coffee?" "Please." Marina sat at the counter. "What day is today?" "A day of important decisions," Raphael said mysteriously. Before Marina could ask what he meant, Alice came running into the kitchen, still in her pajamas, hair messy. "Rafa, you promised that today we were going to choose the dog." Marina's eyes widened. "Dog? What dog?" Raphael had the decency to look slightly embarrassed. "I was going to tell you. Alice and I talked. No, she really wants a dog. And Dr. Sally said it could be good for her asthma, helps with anxiety and all that." "O2 planned this behind my back." Marina tried to look stern, but she couldn't hide her smile. "It was Rafa's idea," Alice declared. "He said every family needs a dog." "Traitor," Raphael murmured, but he was laughing. He looked at Marina. "We don't have to decide today. If you think it's too much, we can wait." Marina looked at Alice, radiant with hope, then at Raphael, clearly also excited about the idea despite trying to look mature. And she thought about how life had changed. A year ago, she was alone with Alice in a tiny apartment, struggling to pay the bills. Now she was here, being asked about adopting a dog as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Okay," she said, "but we choose together, and you two are going to share the responsibility of taking care of it." Alice screamed and threw herself into her arms. Raphael just smiled, that smile that said, "I knew you would say yes." They went to the animal shelter in the afternoon. Alice was so excited she could barely stand still. They spent an hour looking at different dogs, from puppies to older animals, but it was a mutt with golden fur and sad eyes that won them all over. "This one," Alice said with certainty. "He's sad, he needs a family." "How do you know he's sad?" Raphael asked, crouching beside her. "Because I recognize it," Alice said with that strange wisdom children sometimes have. "I was like that before you." Raphael looked at Marina, and she saw tears shining in his eyes. He hugged Alice tight. "Then let's give him a family, just like you gave me a family." They took the dog home that same day. Alice named him Sol because he is golden like the sun. And when they arrived at the penthouse, with Sol exploring every corner, barking excitedly, Marina looked at the scene, Alice laughing, Raphael trying to teach commands to the dog without much success, and felt something click in her chest. That was family. Messy, imperfect, built from broken pieces that came together, but it was theirs. That night, after Alice fell asleep with Sol curled at her feet, Marina and Raphael stood on the balcony, looking at the illuminated city. "I need to tell you something," Raphael said, taking her hand. Marina felt a tightening in her chest. "What?" "I sold my majority stake in Almeida Holdings." Marina turned to him, shocked. "What? Why?" "Because I realized I don't want to spend 12 hours a day building empires anymore. I want to be here, with you and Alice. I want to see her grow up, not miss the most important years of her life because I'm in meetings." Raphael interlaced his fingers with hers. "I kept part of the company, enough to remain financially comfortable, but I passed operational control to Marcelo. He's better at it than I am anyway. Raphael, are you sure? That company was everything to you. No, Marina, it wasn't everything. It was what I used to fill the void. But now the void doesn't exist anymore. He gently held her face. You and Alice are my everything now, and I want to enjoy every second we have together. Marina felt the tears flow. You can't make sacrifices like that for us. What if you regret it? I won't regret it. And it's not a sacrifice, it's a choice, the best choice I've ever made. Raphael wiped her tears with his thumbs. Actually, there's something else. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Marina stopped breathing. Marina Santos, Raphael said, opening the box to reveal a simple and beautiful ring, a solitaire diamond in white gold. You woke me from a sleep I didn't even know I was living. You showed me that feeling pain is worth it if it also means feeling joy. You gave me a family when I thought I would die alone, and I cannot imagine a single day of my life without you. Marina's tears now fell freely. Raphael, let me finish, he said, smiling through his own emotion. I know you don't come from a traditional family. I know Alice's father didn't do what he should have. I know you have reasons to be afraid of commitment. But I promise, Marina, I promise to be here every day, good and bad. I promise to be the father Alice deserves. I promise to love you not in spite of your scars, but also because of them, because they made you who you are. He knelt and Marina began to sob for real. Marry me, Marina. Let me spend the rest of my life proving that you deserve to be loved like this, that the two of you deserve every good thing this world has to offer. Marina couldn't speak. She only nodded repeatedly while crying and laughing at the same time. Raphael slid the ring onto her finger, then stood up and pulled her into a deep, long kiss, full of promises. Yes, he whispered against her lips. Yes, Marina confirmed. 1,000 times yes. They stayed embraced for a long time, just feeling each other's presence under the stars of São Paulo. And Marina thought about how strange life was, how a moment of exhaustion, a silly mistake of falling asleep in a bed that wasn't hers, could change everything. Do you know what's funny, she said. If you had sent me away that day, none of this would have happened. Raphael laughed. I know, but the moment I saw you sleeping there, Marina, something in me just knew. I don't know how to explain it, but it was like recognizing something I was looking for without knowing I was looking for it. Destiny? Maybe, or just luck, the best luck of my life. 3 months later, they married in a small and intimate ceremony on the penthouse balcony. Only close friends, including Marcelo and Dr. Sales. Donna Celia, the neighbor who had always helped Marina with Alice, cried throughout the entire event, and Alice, as the flower girl, carried the rings with absolute seriousness, Saul trotting beside her with a bow around his neck. Helena did not go. She had sent a formal card days before wishing happiness in a tone that made it clear she did not approve, but she included a generous check for Alice with a note, for the child's educational future. It was her twisted way of accepting that this was real, permanent. Raphael read the note and just smiled sadly. She'll come around eventually, when she realizes how much she's missing. And if she doesn't? Marina asked. Then it's her loss. I have everything I need right here. During the ceremony, when it came time for the vows, Marina held Raphael's hands and said, I spent so much time believing I didn't deserve to be happy, that my role was to fight, to survive, to endure. But you taught me that I deserve more, that Alice deserves more. You gave us not just a home, but belonging. And I promise to spend the rest of my life loving you with the same intensity that you love us. I promise to be your partner, your best friend, your safe harbor, just as you are ours. Raphael had to wipe away tears before saying his vows. Marina, you and Alice didn't just change my life. You gave me a life, for real. And I promise to honor that every day. I promise to be the man you deserve. I promise that our home will always be a place of love, not emptiness. I promise that Alice will grow up knowing she is unconditionally loved. And I promise to love you until my last breath. When they kissed as husband and wife, the guests applauded. But all Marina could hear was her heart beating in unison with his. Afterward, during the small reception, Alice pulled the two of them into a corner. She was serious, which was rare. Can I call you Dad now? She asked Raphael, her voice small, insecure. Raphael knelt in front of her. his hands on her small shoulders. "Alice, you can call me whatever you want, but if you call me Dad, it would be the greatest honor of my life." "So, Dad," Alice tested the word, then smiled. "Dad!" She threw herself into his arms, and Raphael hugged her tight, his face buried in her hair. Marina watched them, her heart so full it hurt. Her family. Against all odds, against all predictions, they had made it. 2 years later, Marina was in the penthouse kitchen, which now truly looked like a home, full of photographs on the walls, Alice's drawings on the fridge, Saul's toys scattered on the floor, when she felt Raphael's arms wrap around her waist. "How are you feeling?" he asked, his hands resting on her belly, which was beginning to grow. "Nauseous," Marina admitted, "but happy." The pregnancy had been a surprise. At 35, Marina hadn't expected to have another child, but when she saw the 2 lines on the test, she felt a joy she hadn't anticipated. And Raphael cried when she told him. He cried and picked her up and spun her around the room, laughing like a child. Alice was extremely excited about the idea of being a big sister. She had already chosen names, planned how she would share her toys, and promised to teach everything she knew. "Do you think it will be a boy or a girl?" Raphael asked, kissing Marina's neck. "I don't know, but it will be loved. That much I know. Just like you." Raphael turned her to face him. "You know that, right? That you are loved, that you deserve all of this." Marina smiled. It took time, but she finally believed it. She finally understood that her past did not define her future, that it was possible to rebuild, to start over, to be happy. "I know," she said, kissing him softly. "Finally, I know." That night, when everyone was already asleep, Alice in her room, Saul curled at the foot of the bed, Raphael beside Marina, his hand resting on her belly, Marina stayed awake for a few minutes, just thinking. She thought of the girl she had been, pregnant and alone at 24, scared of the future. She thought of the sleepless nights, the exhausting jobs, the moments when she didn't know how she would continue. She thought of the day she fell asleep in that bed, broken with fatigue, without any idea that she was about to wake up to a completely new life. And she thought about how strange and wonderful life was, how sometimes broken rules lead to the best destinations, how what seems like a mistake can be the beginning of everything. Marina looked at Raphael sleeping beside her, then at the half-open door to Alice's room, then placed her hand over her belly where a new life was growing, and she felt, for the first time in her adult life, complete peace. There was no more fear, there were no more doubts, only the certainty that finally she was exactly where she should be, at home with her family, loved and safe. And when she closed her eyes and let herself fall asleep, it was with a smile on her lips and gratitude in her heart. Because sometimes falling asleep in the wrong place can wake you up exactly where you always belonged. The silence of the penthouse was no longer deafening. It was filled with soft breaths, synchronized heartbeats, the tangible presence of love and belonging. And if anyone asked Rafael Almeida or Marina Santos how they got there, they would both say the same thing. By breaking the rules that kept them alone, by choosing to feel even when it hurt,